Hey everyone, welcome to episode 17 of Terpenes and Testing the podcast. This broadcast is brought to you by Mace Media Group and Terpenes and Testing magazine, the industry's first publication dedicated to cannabis science. I'm Jason Lupoi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Terpenes and Testing magazine, and I'll be your host as we navigate across the landscape of cannabis and psychedelic science. Some states like Pennsylvania have yet to offer a full array of cannabis products, such as different foods and beverages. Pills are considered edibles here, and while I applaud Pennsylvania lawmakers for enacting medical legalization here in any form, not everybody wants to vape or dab or consume yet more pills. We do not yet have the delightful products that so many other states have responsibly brought to market, such as chocolates or gummies, alcohol-free beers and wines, punches, brownies, cookies, kombuchas, etc. These delivery mechanisms are very household and approachable and offer much more routine ways to ingest cannabis and cannabinoids. So for this episode, I wanted to speak with Austin Stevenson. Austin is the Chief Innovation Officer at Vertosa. He leads all commercial activities, including technical sales, tactical marketing, and new business development. Austin facilitates partnerships with leading brands to produce top-quality cannabis-infused products across a variety of industries. In addition, Austin's work has largely centered on breaking barriers to create a pathway towards financial success and opportunity for women and BIPOC entrepreneurs. At Vertosa, Austin accelerates economic empowerment by providing a technology platform for entrepreneurs that inspires innovation and enables powerful business concepts. This comes with the additional layer of always improving and ensuring that these brands have the resources needed to evolve their product portfolios. And prior to joining Vertosa, Austin leveraged his biotech experience by building the regulatory hemp and CBD testing program for Eurofins Scientific, a world leader in food, environment, and product testing services. And there he built and designed quality testing protocols for CVS Pharmacy, and other retailers who carry hemp and CBD products. For over 10 years, Austin has advised startups, built businesses, and launched hundreds of new products in finance, technology, and CPG industries. Austin is driven to serve and holds public office as commissioner on the City of Oakland's Cannabis Regulatory Commission and treasurer of the Cannabis Beverage Association. Austin is also an advisor and mentor for the Ease Momentum Accelerator and was recognized in the 40 under 40 class of 2021 by the San Francisco Business Times. So Austin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Jason. I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate having you here as well. And so I just wanted to kind of kickstart our conversation with a question that I like to ask a lot of people, because we all kind of have different stories about how we all merged into this industry in one regard or another. So I was curious if you could talk a little bit about how you got involved in the cannabis industry and what being in this industry means for you on a personal level.
Oh, I love that question. Well, how I got involved in the cannabis industry at the start was many years ago. I was kind of a late bloomer, if you will. I didn't try cannabis until I was in New York City at Columbia University. I really found at that time cannabis to be an amazing tool to really help manage kind of my health and manage pain. I was a college athlete, and I was the guy that didn't like to pop pills or take, any of those sites or different medicines that folks would try to give you at the college level. Instead, I was like, no, if I just consume a little bit of cannabis, that's going to help me manage that pain. As the years progressed and I evolved professionally, my really entrance into the regulated cannabis space came about somewhere around 2014 when Colorado first legalized. At that time, I was in technology. I was an advisor, a part of an accelerator in Africa, and I spent time at the MIT Innovation Lab and saw people cultivating green leafy vegetables in the middle of the Kalahari Desert. And when I saw that, I got really curious. I very much am that curious person. So I started to do a little bit of research, and I found that the cannabis industry was really helping to accelerate that indoor cultivation that I saw while at the MIT Innovation Lab. So I kind of peeled the layers of the onion back, and I said, okay, where's the most cultivation happening? where's the most technology advancement happening in the cannabis industry. It was in Colorado. I took that opportunity to go to Colorado. I started to advise and mentor a few different businesses. And that's where the journey began. Over the years, I started to invest and advise in different places in the supply chain, everything from cultivation to extraction, and then ultimately found myself in analytical chemistry at Eurofins Scientific. This is a French publicly traded multinational, multi-billion-dollar company that saw an opportunity to really raise the bar in terms of safety and reliability of cannabis products, and built their, as you mentioned earlier, I built their analytical chemistry platform from the ground up. Worked with clients like CVS and Walgreens and other traditional retailers, and ultimately I found there were some big problems in the industry, and a lot of the problems were around friction and accessibility. People wanted to try cannabis, but they didn't want to smoke. They didn't want to vape. They didn't want to do anything that was harmful to their lungs. So they needed something more approachable, more familiar. And it was at that time at Eurofins where I saw tons of infused products coming across our lab, infused beverages, and they were all failing potency test. I thought to myself, like, wow, this is a very familiar, very easy to understand product form factor, but it's failing potency test. Why? And that had to do a lot with the chemistry. And then fortunately and kind of almost serendipitously, one of my good friends and old partners, Ben Larson, now CEO at Vertosa, came to me with our other co-founder, Dr. Harold Hahn, who had a technology that was specific to encapsulating cannabinoids, and came to me on the same day that I told CVS that they were failing potency tests. They said, we have an emulsion solution that will pass potency tests each and every time. I took it to the lab, ran it, through the HPLC. It passed, and I said, "All right, guys, we have something here. Let's see if we can build a business around it." And that's where we got our start in 2018.
Yeah, that's a really neat story. And I think one of the things that I took from that is it sounded like, if I heard you correctly, you were looking, you were looking at the cannabis industry for guidance for indoor cultivation of some other plant in Africa.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, in sub-Saharan Africa, there's not like a widely amount of cultivation of vegetables. And so, and also there's a lack of like water supply. So when I originally was part of that MIT Innovation Lab, they were just growing green leafy vegetables in freight containers in the middle of the desert. So spinach and kale, primarily those edible type of vegetables. But they're all using LED light technologies or some form of indoor lights. And it was really that curiosity that I found that, it's really cannabis cultivation that is helping to rapidly accelerate indoor cultivation.
Yeah, that's neat, because I think that often in this industry, because it's so new, we're often looking at other industries to see how they've done things. Recently we were talking on this show about looking to the e-cig and tobacco industry for regulations on allowed flavor additives and things like that into vaporizable products. And it's neat that you were able to look at this burgeoning industry and take something from that for another industry, and then ultimately come back and provide the industry with a much needed product style. Exactly what you said. A reproducible product that is not going to be failing potency tests.
Yeah, I think Jason, it's as critical in all businesses, especially startup businesses and the startup industry, that we're solving problems. And we really built Vertosa around the problem originally, which was stability. Of getting cannabis, in oil, a fat-based lipid, into water, and making sure that it was homogeneous and stable in that beverage. And so the reason why is because, number one, it has to pass potency tests. But from the consumer perspective, you have to have and be able to create a metered experience. And what that means is that, when I consume a 10 milligram Pabst Blue Ribbon infused seltzer, if I drink half of it, I want to know that I'm drinking exactly 5 milligrams, so I can really understand what that 5 milligrams will do to me, so I can really meter my experience. Because the problem, as you know, it's that friction. And people want to try cannabis, but they don't want to smoke. So we really had to embrace familiar form factors, and that was beverage, so they can really learn what a cannabis experience was. And then the second thing that we had to really solve for was the stigma around edibles, because a lot of folks, gave it the old college try, and tried a brownie or a cookie that they made with a weed butter of some sort, and they didn't feel the onset until an hour or 2 hours later, and then maybe they didn't feel anything for 90 minutes, and then all of a sudden they eat some more of the cookie, and then at the 2 hour mark they're completely knocked out, and now they're scared of edibles for the rest of their life.
Right.
So we had to break that and make it, again, approachable and safe and reliable. So we first solve with stability, get oils into water. Then we solve for metered dosing to ensure that it's homogeneous throughout the entire beverage. And then we had to solve for, that slow onset. So we had to make it fast acting so that, again, the consumer could taste it, feel it in 10 to 15 minutes, and therefore meter their dosing to know that, hey, maybe I'm a 5 milligram guy, or maybe, I can drink 2 of these 10 milligram drinks and feel great. So I'm a 20 milligram person. But that was a part of our responsibility, that we had to make it approachable. We had to make it reliable. We had to make it familiar and safe, so that we can bring more people into cannabis consumption.
Yeah, it really sounds like a well thought out, data driven scientific approach to solving a problem in the industry, and it's really exciting to hear that's kind of how this all began. You mentioned Pabst, and I really like to sit back and kind of watch how Pabst has evolved, because at one point it seems like Pabst was a company that was struggling to perhaps compete with Budweiser, AB and or Miller Coors, and all the bigger companies and beers that were on the market. And then you started to see like a whole generation kind of going towards Pabst Blue Ribbon. And if you go into different types of barber shops that allow serve you alcohol free drink while you're waiting, it's always seems like it's Pabst Blue Ribbon. And then I saw Pabst just started to infuse products with cannabis. And to my knowledge, I know you guys were working with Lagunitas as well. To my knowledge, Pabst, I haven't heard of any of the other really big beer producers doing something like this. And so I was curious if you could talk a little bit about, what your work with Lagunitas and Pabst has been like, and kind of what their objectives were in some of the products that you've brought to market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been a key part of this journey of making cannabis more approachable, but also destigmatize it. And one of the ways that we knew that we needed to help make cannabis more approachable is by aligning very familiar brands with cannabis products. Pabst has been around for, I think, over 130 years. It's your grandfather's brand that he grew up with. So part of the hypothesis was that if we can get a very familiar brand that even your grandfather would recognize to embrace cannabis, that's going to help to destigmatize the industry as a whole and make it more approachable. Jason, you're absolutely correct in terms of Pabst's evolution. And their brand leaders will tell you directly that they were struggling to compete for a long time, when they were just a beer company. But over time, Pabst started to recognize, shifts and changes in consumer, preferences, specifically the millennial and Gen Z consumer, where they're wanting more function out of the products that they have and that they consume. And so, when they started to evolve, they started to address number one, this is Pabst. They started to really address the the millennial hipster, type of demographic, and did a really great job there. And that's why you saw the product at the barbershop. But then they evolved and they said that, we're more than a beer company. We are a brand, and we're going to leverage our brand equity to be the leading functional beverage provider. And a lot of people don't know this about Pabst, but before they even did the cannabis seltzer, they have a whiskey out there. They have a coffee out there. So they're going beyond beer. They're trying different beverage formats to really build a larger audience and bring more people into the Pabst brand. So cannabis just so happened to be a natural extension of that. This is a functional wellness product that they can apply the PBR, very familiar, recognizable brand, and then offer just a new experience, a different experience. So when we connected with the Pabst team, that's exactly what that we sought to do, is to really, hold true to the authenticity of the brand, keep it simple, provide a new cannabis experience using Delta 9 THC, a little bit of CBD, and we have a couple of more new, fun, innovative projects that are, coming to market very, very soon. I got to kind of keep them under lock and key, but ultimately, we knew that the form factor of a seltzer, they're very simple, relevant form factor that you see so much today with the hard alcohol seltzers. Just replace the alcohol with cannabis and make it fun, make it exciting, make it approachable. It was a 12-month product development process. Like Pabst, also Lagunitas, a very familiar craft brewery here in California, wanted to leverage their brand equity to create and to design a new experience with cannabis. So the product development cycles for both companies involve a lot of tasting, a lot of different trials. Pabst was keeping it very clean and simple. Seltzer, flavors, Delta 9 cannabis. That's all that mattered to them. And it had in the cannabis flavor they wanted to reduce so they can create a very clean and crisp flavor profile for the mass market. Very different than Lagunitas. Lagunitas, different than PBR, is a craft brewery. And so having that craft element of really embracing, some of the more botanical or herbaceous flavors was important to them. So we had to design a different emulsion for Lagunitas. They ultimately wanted to infuse a hop water. Well, with hops, it has different compounds. It has the terpenes. It has polyphenols. So the chemistry of that application is very different than a seltzer water with traditional flavors. So again, through that year-long kind of product development journey, we were tinkering with different emulsion systems to help complement the compounds that are in the hop water. And then they continued to evolve their flavor profile as well. And so they just recently won a couple of awards for their Lagunitas Hi-Fi Sessions, which is now, really embracing some of the other terpenes that are familiar in hops as well as in cannabis, and then therefore creating a flavor system that is, very sophisticated. And it's not a seltzer. And in fact, it's more of the likes of a craft beer. But instead of alcohol, it's cannabis. So again, you're seeing two very familiar companies, two very familiar brands, create a cannabis product that is authentic to their brand identity. PBR for the mass market, functional wellness, clean, crisp tasting. Lagunitas for the craft brew, botanical forward, sophisticated flavor profile. Both leveraging their brand equity, both creating a new experience with their brand through cannabis.
That's amazing. And I've had the Lagunitas hop water before. It's great. And it's everything. It sounds exactly like what you just described. It doesn't necessarily have that beer quality to it, but it's exactly what it says. It's a hoppy water. And to be able to look towards infusing THC in that, I think one of the points that you brought up it was really key and vital to the industry, and that is that sort of recognition, because a lot of times, and I think that some markets you start to see the same parent company having all these different brands, and it might be things you've never heard of before. And so when you go to the store, you don't have that recognition of, out of these 15 brands, which one am I going to buy? And you may not know much about the brands themselves. And I think to be able to look at Pabst Blue Ribbon, for example, like you said, like our grandfather's brand, and I've taught some courses to senior citizens about cannabis, and that sort of relation to something household, whether it be all the terpenes in their spice cabinet, or saying, here's a company that you've known your whole life that doesn't think this is like a demonic product. You know what I mean? Like I think that's
Yes.
really key for them to see that, wow, why maybe there is something to this here, because now, this brand or that brand is getting involved in it. So I think that's something that we might overlook in this industry, because a lot of us are, all about the mom and pop companies being able to have a foothold. And I totally agree with that, just like the craft beer industry. But at the same time, there might be a lot of people who have really no interest in, like you said, certain forms of cannabis. And to see not only an approachable form, but a brand they know doing this, I think that could be very powerful for them.
Yes, I mean, Jason, I mean, you're spot on. I really admire that you're doing these teaching courses to senior citizens, because that's one of the largest demographic groups that are adopting cannabis. Primarily just for improvement of quality of life, and familiarity and trust is the key here. We are a B2B, Vertosa, that is. Vertosa is a B2B platform for innovation. We built our company around the pillars of trust, leadership, and community. And a consumer doesn't know the Vertosa brand, but the consumer knows Lagunitas, it knows PBR. I mean, we've even done a hemp product in the UK with Vita Coco. And so we knew that we had to instill trust in these brands first, so that they could put their brand marks on what's going to be consumer facing. Because if you build that trust, inherently you're building a bridge towards consumer adoption of a cannabis product. And it's leveraging the brand equity that's pre-existing to bring more people in. And that's what really gets me super excited about, serving the cannabis industry, is that responsibility and that opportunity to bring more people in. And that's where I get super excited with the work that we're doing. And it's only the start. I mean, this is only the tip of the iceberg, which I'm sure that where people are starting to ask for more than just Delta 9 THC. And they're asking for
Right.
minor cannabinoids. They're asking for terpenes, and the consumer is getting more educated now. So, we have so much innovation that is still ahead of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for some of our remaining time, I think it would be great to talk about, for folks that don't know, when you're making a beverage, and we're talking about making something that's not water soluble, either water soluble, like soluble in quotes, just so the particle size being reduced small enough that it has that suspension quality, like an emulsion. Could you talk a little bit about making nano emulsions and what this process includes?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny, and that you mentioned solubility, because at the end of the day, it's all chemistry, and we're a bunch of cannabis nerds here at Vertosa, so we get pretty specific on calling out that nanoemulsions are dispersible. They're water dispersible. You're not changing the chemical compound to be soluble with water like something like salt. Instead, we're suspending compounds into water evenly. And so, as the nerds and us like to say, water dispersible. And it's critical to understand that in terms of the application and the development of the nanotechnology in water. And so I liken the process to, number one, kind of like this analogy that I use for folks, where it starts with your traditional cannabis oil. If you gave it that old college try that I was talking about moments ago, where you had a brownie or you had a cookie, and you didn't feel anything for an hour or 2 hours, and then all of a sudden you felt all of this like sudden rush of sensory overload. Well, it's because the cannabis oil had to get metabolized through your digestive tract. Your body had to process it. It had to go through the liver for the cannabis oils to cross your brain-blood barrier. And once the oils cross your brain-blood barrier, that's when you have the sensory feeling. Well, as we know, everybody's digestive tract and how people metabolize things, it differs from person to person. Literally speaking, every body is different. But ultimately, how we make something rapid onset or fast acting is that it's the unique blend between both chemistry and physics. So we start with the oil, and then we use that oil, and then we apply emulsifiers. And to be, emulsifiers are common food ingredients, gross ingredients, where you find them in ice cream and salad dressing and anything that has oil incorporated into it. Emulsifiers are the reason why when you scoop some ice cream, you have that nice even scoop, is because the oils are suspended in that frozen water. Well, anyway, if you're thinking about cannabis oils and you're thinking about applying a nanotechnology, you start with the chemistry, the emulsifiers, and then you apply energy. That's the physics. And so we take high energy and apply that to the cannabis oils with emulsifiers to encapsulate the cannabinoids. So take something really big and make it really small. Again, going back to the analogy of having to break down the oils and cross your brain-blood barrier. If you think about your brain-blood barrier as a chain link fence, that cannabis brownie that you had back in the day, it's like taking a beach ball and trying to push it through the chain link fence. It's just going to bounce back because it has to break down before it can be absorbed and cross your brain-blood barrier. So instead, what we're doing is we're taking that cannabis oil, we are applying the chemistry, emulsifiers, we're applying an energy, physics, to turn that beach ball into a pile of gravel. So we take something big, make it really small. Now you take that handful of gravel, you throw that through the chain link fence, they're all going to pass through. So that's what really allows for that rapid absorption, meaning that if you're sipping on a PBR infused seltzer, you can start to absorb some of those cannabinoids, right through your sublingual mucosal. And that's all about the particle size. And then you're going to absorb more as the cannabinoids start to continue down your digestive tract. Now, there's a lot of little nuances that are also important to call out that, on some emulsions, it does end up still being processed through your liver. But we have techniques, and a lot of them are proprietary, where you can design an experience to start to have that absorption before it hits your liver. And so therefore, do something more that is similar to smoking, where you are experiencing cannabinoids through your lymphatic system. And so that's a whole another level of chemistry that we apply to really help design that fast, unique experience. But ultimately, to summarize it, it's just the unique bond between chemistry and physics. It's high energy applied to cannabis oils to take something really big, make it really small, so that it absorbs rapidly. Before you have to go through that huge metabolic experience, and that's really what we do in a nutshell. And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fantastic explanation. I think it was really a good summary on the process. I'm curious, this for my last question for you. If you were to look into the crystal ball, like what kind of beverages do you see as being the leaders across the market moving forward?
Oh man, I mean, there's so much opportunity out there, Jason. When we started, everyone wanted flavorless, tasteless cannabis. They just wanted, a White Claw or truly of cannabis products. And that's what we saw. PBR one in the beginning, but now because we've been successful at bringing more cannabis consumers literally into the dispensaries, and they're getting educated more. They're asking for more. And it's all in line with this trend around functional wellness. People want more, good stuff that is going into their body. And so we're learning alongside the cannabis industry the inclusion of terpenes and their impact on your overall well-being and health and wellness. You're seeing terpenes being included in the craft beer space, in the non-alcoholic space. And so if I'm looking to the future, I'm very much seeing not only cannabinoids being utilized, but also terpenes being utilized. And those terpenes being both botanically derived as well as cannabis and hemp derived. You're starting to see a big movement away from, just distillate, and instead people asking for solventless or rosin or full spectrum, broad spectrum applications, which very much embraces the botanical and herbaceous nature of the plant. But it's a far way away from flavorless, tasteless cannabinoids where we were a few years ago. So if we're kind of trying to skating to where the hockey puck is going, it all kind of comes down to an analog that's very similar to wine, where you're going to see traceability back to the farm, where you're going to have a conversation around the unique terroir which the cannabis was grown that enabled a certain terpene profile because it was sun grown, and had unique soil elements, and that's why you have really profound and robust elements of limonene or myrcene or humulene or beta caryophyllene. And it's because of that unique terroir, and it's going to be incorporated into these beverages in a very sophisticated way. And so instead of just drinking an infused seltzer, it's going to be more of the likes of having a sophisticated wine or having like a gin cocktail where you're getting those botanical and herbaceous notes in, and it's done in a very beautiful and intentional way.
I mean, I think you just described my own personal product wish list, and that's really encouraging to hear that you're seeing this in the industry as well. We just started to see some solventless products here in Pennsylvania, and
Awesome.
that sort of whole plant, or adding other botanicals in, things like that. That's everything that I think is interesting. I've had kombuchas that have chocolate and mushrooms and things like that in them, and I found them to be amazing. So it's neat. I
Yes.
think it's pretty neat that cannabis is going in that direction as well.
Oh, it's awesome, Jason. And I get excited when I talk to others like yourself that see those applications. You're very much a trendsetter, and we are leading by example. And I really credit all the brands partners that we work with for really understanding what their consumers want, where the trends are leading. And I think we're headed to a place of just better for you products, and that's what people want. It's all about longevity, quality of life, and in a society where we're fortunate to be able to go to a grocery store and have the diversity of products out there. We want to be part of that narrative where we're providing products of high quality, products that are safe, products that are reliable, products that are consistent, and going to ultimately support that well-being. And I feel that I look forward to the day where you don't have to go to a dispensary to find a cannabis product. You can go to your local grocery store and pick it up right off the shelf, just like you would your milk or your cheese or your beer. It'll take time, but that's why we're all in this together, is to really rise ships and create an industry that has a lot of impact.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's a great vision for us to kind of behold and reach for. So, Austin, I really want to thank you for being our guest today and sharing some of your insights on cannabis beverages and the future of those beverages. It really was a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it, and I look forward to more. And any questions any of your audience has, feel free to reach out to us. All of our socials are at Vertosa Inc. You can find us online at vertosa.com. I encourage everyone to go out and try an infused cannabis product, whether it be a beverage or a gummy or a chocolate. Go enjoy it and let us know how you feel.
It sounds like a great invitation. And thank you again, Austin, for being my guest today. And thank all of you for tuning in. We will see you next time on Terpenes and Testing, the podcast. Until then, please come see us on our social media platforms or at www.terpenesandtesting.com. Cheers.